Hey everyone, it's Simone. I'm here with Bella Crystal, and we're here for another soul communication, a soul conversation. And today we are with the 32. Bella, why don't you share with everyone what we're doing?
So, we are role modeling for you how to tap into the consciousness of a gene key or a gate, and we are following the transit. So, right now we are in the 32, and Simone has this unique ability, the way she does it, to just basically tap into the consciousness of anything. So, what we are going to do today is to share with you what Simone's gets, and then have you also, if you want to, ask questions, because like Simone always says, it's the questions that really kind of make it become alive.
All right. And so if you are joining us, please ask your questions, use the comments. And if you're live, we'll look at them live. And if you watch the video after we've recorded, please place them in the place contribute and participate, and we will see your comments, your questions, your feedback, and we love you for joining us. So if we're ready, let's just dive in. Let's see what the 32 has to say. I'd like to communicate with the soul of the 32. Archetype of the soul of 32. Will you communicate with us? Wow, it's a beautiful landscape. We're starting with a beautiful landscape today, and it's in the background. There's water, and then there's grass, and then there's a big, huge tree. And kind of from the side of the tree, imagine that someone's coming out from behind a tree. The sun moves around the side of the tree. And it's like awakening, but not like the sun comes up, or rotating around the earth. It's kind of like rotating around the tree, and it's really big. And as that sunlight comes around the trunk of the tree, the 32 is inside the light of the sun. And the 32 shows that it's not alone in the light of the sun. It's, it's like welcome. There are a lot of people in the light of the sun of the 32. And the 32 wants people to join with it in this light. And it feels like almost like we're going into a wigwam or a really sacred space. It feels like it's kind of like a womb, but it actually has the feeling of a teepee, and it feels like when we go into that space with the 32, we're in this kind of womb like space. So if you're into geometries, imagine a triangle, but it feels very native and connected to the earth. It feels like a very protected space in this space with the 32. And inside the 32, inside this wigwam or this protected womb space, there's teaching going on. And it feels like the teaching of the sacred wisdom of the earth keepers, like the ancient wisdom of earth, of how to be on earth, how to be in union, communion with the earth, how to live in union with the self, how to be in balance. And as I'm sitting in this sacred womb of space, of this sacred wisdom that's being shared, even though there's someone who is, in a sense, leading us, there is this deep reverence for everyone who is there, because it feels like everyone who is sitting in this sacred space holds a piece of the wisdom. Like we all need each other in this sacred space. And as we are sitting there, more people are coming in to this sacred space. And there's no limitation. It's like there's no you can come in, you can't come in. It doesn't matter how many people come in. It's just come in. Everybody's welcome. The womb expands, the wigwam expands, the sacred space expands, it's infinite. And then the 32 shows me there are people who are sitting in the womb, and then there are people holding space around the womb, like outside of this sacred space we're in. And there is no barrier, if you will. Then the 32 looked up. So imagine, this sacred space, like a teepee, has a portal right at the top, an opening to the cosmos. And the 32 looks up through that portal of grace. And as they, I'm going to say they because distinctly the divine masculine and the divine feminine are in the 32. Sometimes the masculine is speaking to me and sometimes the feminine is speaking to me. But as they look up through this portal of grace, their hearts bloom, our hearts bloom. And it's like the blooming of all of us moves through this portal of grace. It feels like all of the flowers within us, within our hearts, is so beautiful, you guys. There's so much love in this outpouring of the flowering of our souls and our grace, just blooming out through this portal of grace. And the 32 looks at me and just says, it's infinite. It's infinite. We have infinite grace within us. We have infinite flowers blooming within us. The 32 says that sometimes you think you have a limited number or a limited amount of blooming. And the 32 says that it's infinite. And there's the divine feminine of the 32 is saying it's infinite when you know its source is you. When you know the source of you, it's infinite. And she shows me that when it's in a sense like our consciousness is moved outside of us and we're trying to bloom, that it can feel like I only have one or there's not enough. But she shows us that when we move our consciousness into ourself and seat it in the soul of ourself, we understand, we feel, we experience this infinite blooming of the self through this portal of grace and this womb of these this ancient wisdom. And then she's showing me like the blooms in their hearts and how that mirrors the blooms in our own hearts, and the resonance between us all. It really reminds me of the whole principles in heart math and the sharing of the blooming of each of us with each other and the resonance of that. And then she takes me back to that image where when our consciousness is outside of us and we try to do this sharing of the blooming of us, and it feels empty, it feels hollow, it feels disconnected. And when we move our consciousness back into our being, we feel the infiniteness of ourselves and our blooming. And then she shows me that there's a parallel between the body of Gaia and our individual bodies. And it's like when we're disconnected from Gaia, that we experience that hollowness, that disconnection, like there's not enough. But when we move our consciousness into our own bodies and into the body of Gaia, there's so much love and respect, reverence, if you will, that we know the infinite potential. And she was showing me that whole connection between, like, when we maintain our consciousness in ourselves and we take care of ourselves because we love ourselves. We have a reverence for ourselves, a love of self. And so we want to take care and nurture that. And she's showing me the parallel, or the fractal, if you will, that when we move our consciousness into our bodies and into Gaia, we have a reverence for Gaia. And we love her and we want to take care of her. And she says, that's the infiniteness. That's the sacredness, the wisdom she's wanting to awaken in us, to remind us, to share us with, that to love ourselves, our literal physical embodiment, our containers of our consciousness, and to love, the container of Gaia, for Gaia's consciousness, and the relationship between Gaia's consciousness and our own consciousness, that fractal nature of it. Now she says she wants to talk to us. So, Bella, do you have any questions, or do our participants have questions? Like, she's so excited to communicate, and she's asking us, she's posing the question, did this awaken within us anything? And she's really wanting to participate in our community, like be a part with us.
Yeah, so if anybody who's watching have the 32 in your chart, whether it's Gene Keys or Human Design, please ask your questions, or if you have questions about it, it's super cool to be able to tap in this way. I was just feeling into the fact this is the ego circuit. And the way that you speak about it, it feels like it's so much about Gaia and preserving Gaia. And I'm wondering if it would speak about its placement in human design in the ego circuit.
She says it's essential right there, because she says it's essential to love ourselves. And that's why it's essential to be in the ego center. And she shows that connection between the ego and the SQ, love of self, and then the greater whole. And she's showing me that connection between the ego and the G. But she's also then showing me, after she made that, so she went from the ego center to the G, then she came back into the ego center and she brought it down to the root.
Yeah, we are speaking about the circuitry here. So it's basically the whole circuitry where we're speaking about the throat connected to the ego, connected to the emotion center, down to the root, up to the spleen. So the 32 is in the spleen, but it's part of the ego circuitry. So that's why, and often we think about it more like the financial manager, or like it sounds a little bit more, I mean, I guess it's tribal, but that's what I'm wondering. It's kind of about individual ambition, the 50 5432, and it sounds so much here it's beyond, and I guess maybe because we are speaking about the higher frequencies, it is beyond that individual ambition. But maybe you could speak a little bit to that, how the individual ambition actually can kind of serve the whole, or I understand it can in the frequency we're speaking about it, but still I think many of us are kind of feeling into that in our own lives, like what's the balance between my individual ambition and how I use my time and my life and the bigger picture.
Well, when you were asking the question, she brought my vision into a body, and she brought the scales of balance. And she says that when we truly love ourselves, that we have this innate understanding of balance, of when to give and when to receive, of how to take care of ourselves and how to take care of others. And that ties to Gaia, that, the innate understanding that if I'm in balance, I have the resources to take care of myself. I have the resources to take care of other. I have the resources to take care of Gaia. I have the resources to take care of myself. And the desire that when we're out of balance, with ourselves, which she's tying to imbalance with self-love. She says when we're out of balance, we don't have the time, the energy, the resources, the brains, like the consciousness to, there's some kind of disconnection in some part of you, that prevents you from taking care of yourself, taking care of Gaia, taking care of other, or you taking care of Gaia so much that you don't take care of yourself, or you're taking care of others so much that you don't take care of yourself. So there's some kind of imbalance. But when you're in balance with self-love, you're in balance with love of other, love of Gaia, that there's, she says the answer to your question is balance, like in a nutshell, I can't hear you, Bella. Did you mute?
Yeah. So when I listen to her, I hear the ancestral reverence. And I can kind of see, I think Richard speaks to that, like the ladder, that you look like those who came before and those who came after. But also, actually, and this is a little bit controversial, you look at kind of the people that are further than you are in consciousness and the people that are maybe learning from you in consciousness. So how can we speak about this? Because I'm like somebody who doesn't think that everything is flat and everything is the same. And as long as you just are happy and don't hurt anybody else, I do recognize, the layers. And I'm wondering how she would speak to that, like these kind of levels of consciousness that different people are embodying, and how to all live in a world where we are all at different levels of consciousness.
She says that veneration doesn't discriminate, that if you are in the vibration of veneration, you respect and hold sacred what came before you, what is, and what is coming. You understand that there is a sacredness of the wisdom that you're grounded in, the wisdom that you are, and the wisdom that is coming in, that you understand that it's not static and it's all happening at once, wherever your consciousness is, that, as a human being, as a consciousness embodied, your focus might be on preserving the past. Others might be on what's right now. Others might be on what's coming in. Some are, in a multitude of arrays of that. But veneration doesn't respect, doesn't exclude. It includes. That to honor the past doesn't negate what's coming in. To honor the now doesn't negate what was. It receives and accepts it all. And in fact, it's there, like she shows it to me in a picture of almost like a timeline segmented. And she's just like, she removes the segmentation and it's all there. There's the capacity to experience all at once. And some are experiencing it in a kind of segmented or isolated way. But then she removes the partitions, if you will, and it's all there. And it doesn't preclude, exclude, it's inclusive.
I'm just muting you when I speak because we have some echo. So I do have another question, but I first want to actually ask Mike's question. He says, does this archetype have a name or a sound? So maybe there is a sound or something that you can tune into before we move on. And I'm going to unmute you.
Oi na 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 mai na 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 ma na na no ma ma na 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 o ma na o na. And she's saying that everyone has sound in the body that they can connect to and sing. She's just sharing. She's going to share several. And she says this is not all inclusive. And so, this is just sampling that she wants to share today. She's sharing other tones. She says that that's a different vibrational frequency. She says we can go up. It's interesting, as she was moving those sounds through me, she showed me different geometries. So she shows me different, she's sharing with us different frequency bands, and she wants everybody who's like tuned in with us. She's encouraging everyone right now. She has me shaking my body a bit, and she's encouraging everyone who's listening to kind of start shaking their body and just allow the natural sound to come through. And she's showing me the sacred dance of Native people, how they danced and kind of used their bodies to release the sound around the sacred fire. And she says the more you practice that, just really, and breath, shaking and using the breath, the more you will come into contact with the vibration of it. Really, really beautiful. She's saying there's no right or wrong. It's really finding the intonation within you. And she keeps showing me this, kind of shaking you. It's almost like when you shake, you don't have any control over, what comes out. You have to release. You have to be free. It promotes the freedom to just make the natural sounds without editing or controlling or needing to be perfect. It's almost just she loves that. And I guess some of y'all are doing it because she's super excited. So
Simone, I feel like we have felt this week more than ever that everything is a field, and that whatever is in the field it's going to come through. And how even today when we were doing the Venus immersion, we were speaking about the body bridge and how to bridge the emotional body with a physical body and how to clean out our cell memories, and how we are using breath, movement, and sound, and how I always speak about shaking. So it's like it's in the energy of it, and then it's like it's a confirmation.
She's saying yes. That's it exactly. She is like so delighted right now that we are playing. She says that there's an aspect, well, she shows me, not for everyone because we're all on the spectrum with the lines, but she says there's an aspect of playfulness that we tap into, and that lightheartedness, in the space of lightheartedness, there's a capacity to receive love. It's like she's showing me in the vessel how when we can go to lightheartedness with ourselves, we can receive ourselves. When we're in the space of lightheartedness, we can receive other people. It's like our barriers, or our, the things that we do to protect, fall away without any, it's effortlessness when we are in that space of lightheartedness. And she's talking about how in that space of lightheartedness, for some, for many, that we can experience the truth.
So I'm thinking about also what she was saying about the shaking. So the 32 has the dilemma. I don't know if it's the dilemma. I think it's the dilemma or the shadow. One of the shadow patterns is panic, and that's when we need to come back to the body. That's when we can use these things to kind of move out the energy that isn't ours, and to come back to something that's more here and grounded. So I can feel how even that tool would work. I'm wondering, because for me, I have it in my Saturn and my Pluto, and I'm wondering, these are kind of big, like malefic planets. I would like to hear if she could say something. Yeah, maybe because Pluto is transformation, is death. Like, what does it mean to have the connection with 32 together with Pluto, for example, or with Saturn, or these bigger outer planets?
The first thing she shows me is the expanse. Like when you started talking about Pluto, I could see the enormity of the expanse between the self and Pluto. And it reminds me of, like, if you're a line 1 and a line 6, how you can, span that physical to the infinite, what hasn't come in yet. And that's the first thing that she shows me, is this expansiveness of working with the Pluto. And then now she's literally showing me Saturn. So I'm going to go to that Saturn, which is, when she showed me Pluto, it was almost like a straight line out. And now I'm at Saturn over here, maybe at a 45, and it's closer and it's bigger. She's saying that Saturn has more to do with love, with integration of love, of integration of self-love, of awakening to self-love, of being in self-love. And wow, when with the Pluto, it was the expansiveness, but with Saturn, it's like the integration of self-love, is what comes through.
And we also had, that was not a question, but we have somebody who has it in Venus. Yeah, we have Venus activations in the 32 as well. Would you speak to what that can be like?
It's so interesting. When we were looking at Pluto and Saturn, it was almost in the, a geometry working together. when I was tuned into Pluto, I was also tuned into to Saturn. They were in my screen together. I felt the resonance in the field together. And when you went to the Venus, it was like so specific to Venus. The 32 and the Venus were, like directly talking, communicating with each other, and it feels so intensely focused and personal. And it's like being, where we see maybe movies or things that have been filmed, and there's a scene where everything, maybe the two people or the person is in the middle and things start swirling around. It's the difference between being aware of everything and being aware of that personal, the individual within the cosmos, but the what's in the center of that spiral is so focused and so clear, and everything else is blurry. It's not really, it's not distracting either, because there's an intense focus with the 32 and the Venus.
Mhm.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would mean that both Christina has in the SQ, that's the sign Venus, and then Kim has it in the IQ, and that is personality Venus. So both of these are kind of the personal story. And is it still the theme of self-love? Would you say that is the theme, or what is the theme for it here?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm watching it in my screen, I'm riveted to what's in the center. I'm aware of the color swirling around, but the clarity that is in the center of that is so defined and so clear that I'm riveted by it. And it almost feels like an example of purity, of clarity within the self. So it's like she's saying, when there is a purity of clarity within, you become an example for all. I hope that helped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking. I don't think there are any other questions right now. Yeah, is there anything else that you want to share, Simone, that comes through?
Well, she took me back to that image that she was showing us with this clarity and this nucleus and the kind of colors swirling around. And then from that clarity of consciousness in the nucleus, as that clarity, then imagine that you are in the nucleus and you have the clarity of self. And from that point of clarity of self, you start to awaken outside of you. It's like all of that was swirling around, as the purity of that clarity is awakened and starts to move outside of the self. It's like all that was swirling around you suddenly is coming into clarity too, and is really beautiful. So then imagine we're in that scene in the movie, right? And it's spinning around and we can only see what's in the nucleus, but then imagine that clarity moving out into the space around you. And there, I also just keep seeing the word stillness, peace. It's really beautiful.
I mean, it's funny because at the shadow frequency, this activation is so different. It has panic, it's fear of failure, it's about individual ambition, and it's like it's so different from that. Is there any like last advice? We have the shaking, for example, and the sound and the breathing, but how to move out of panic, the fear of failure that can like keep us captured in this codon ring of illusion, which actually is the combination of the 32 and the 28. Are there any more practical tips that we can use?
She says, bring your vision in. Get clear on the truth of who you are. From the place of the clarity of truth of who you are, you can see outside. When you are focused on everything outside, it can be really hard to see the clarity of consciousness that you are, that everything you need is inside of you if you're not resisting it. Do you have the courage to go into, to see, to feel, to know, to explore the truth of who you are, to be with the truth of who you are, to love the truth of who you are? And you're going to be different from everybody else because you came here as a perfection. It's like she used the word snowflake. You're the perfect perfection of you. And when you're willing to see the perfection of you and you have that clarity within you, when you look out, those shadow frequencies aren't there because you're grounded in the clarity, the truth of who you are. And there's a knowing of, when you have that knowing, the clarity, and you see yourself, and again, she's using a snowflake because each little snowflake has different edges and different geometries. But you go, oh, look at the beauty of my snowflake. And then, oh, look at the beauty of that one. And oh, look at the beauty of that one. And oh, look at the beauty of that one. So that you have this clarity of consciousness that your perfection is not limited or denied or less than because it's different. And you have this clarity that, oh, we're all a perfection and we're all different. And it doesn't throw you off of the truth of the clarity of who you are. So that when you look out, then you don't, those shadow frequencies aren't melting your snowflake, like bumping you off, right? And so really going into the truth of who you are, she's saying that's where the real work is really having the courage to go within and identify and be aware of and to consistently hold, because it's like she shows me that sometimes we can only see a part of our snowflake. We can't see the whole circle of our, the multidimensionalness of our snowflake. Sometimes we can only see the part of it that's ahead of us or on the side of us or underneath us, like we don't see our whole snowflake. And so, coming back around, like we use experience to come back around, and then we got, oh, I processed that. Now I can see more of my snowflake. So, and then you can look out with more clarity. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think maybe since we're speaking about the truth of who you are, so if you want to reach out to Simone and do a soul conversation session, do that. If you want to learn more about human design and gene keys, you can go to Unlock Your Design and look at the things that we have there. And good good luck everybody with your quest of coming back to the truth of who you are. And I feel like just by listening to the archetypes coming through, I feel like I come closer to the truth of who I am every time we speak. So thank you, Simone. And maybe you want to say thank you also if you want to just close the container.
Yes, absolutely. So just saying thank you to the 32 for communicating with us and bringing in all the love of self. She said those words, love of self. And she truly loves us all. And it was like she started with some rings of Saturn around her, and she was flowing out love to each of us through her rings. And she says that she would love to communicate with us anytime we like. She says, come back anytime. And we're back in the womb container, the sacred space that we began in. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm outside of that womb, so I feel like we've closed. Oh, thank you. So fun. Take care, everyone.